Currently, in the world of medicine, there is a large debate about whether or not assisted suicide should be legal. Some believe that patients have the right to end their lives when they choose to do so. Others believe that doctors and patients should not have this right. Although there are arguments for and against it, the negatives far outweigh the benefits of assisted suicide. It should not be legal because the law gets abused, people are unfairly treated, and lives are ended unnecessarily. Since assisted suicide is a newer concept, some people don't know what it is and others don't know much about it. Assisted suicide is when a terminally ill patient decides to take their life with the help of their physician through lethal prescriptions. So far, it's been legalized in California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington, D.C. The laws in all of these states are very similar. The patient has to have less than 6 months left to live, they have to be 18 years or older, they have to give 2 oral consents 15 days apart, and they have to have 1 written consent. There has to be 2 doctors that give consent to give the prescription. In Montana, it is not illegal to do assisted suicide, but the Supreme Court has a ruling that if a patient gives written consent to their doctor, the doctor cannot be prosecuted. Deathwithdignity.org has a lot of information on this. The laws in these states were passed at different times, so there's been a different number of deaths in all of these states. CNN.com reports that since 1997, when the law was passed in Oregon, 1,275 patients have died through the lethal prescriptions. In Colorado, the law was passed in 2017, and so far 69 people have died. More than this number of prescriptions has been given in each of the states, but not everybody who gets a prescription takes them and dies. Some die before they're able to take the prescription, some change their mind about it, and others take it and it doesn't work. After getting a general understanding of assisted suicide, it's important to look at both arguments. For assisted suicide, there are some very good arguments in favor of it. The most obvious is that patients no longer have to suffer from their terminal illness. There's a lot of physical and emotional pain that comes with it. The physical pain is due to the body deteriorating and the medications that try to help the patients. The emotional pain is watching themselves no longer be able to do the activities that they had always done. Not only is the patient themselves tortured by this, but their families also are, watching them lose capabilities that they've always had. Another pro is that healthcare costs are reduced for patients and their families. Not only is the equipment and the medication that the patients have to take when they have this illness very expensive, but the frequent visits to the doctor are as well. It helps not only the patient, but their family members who are left with the bills once they pass away and no longer have to worry about this. Another benefit is that doctors are able to focus more on their patients who they can help. When there's a terminally ill patient, there's not a lot doctors can do, but they are very frequently involved with these patients. When they choose assisted suicide, the focus goes more on the patients who are going to live, or it even opens up a spot to get new patients in the clinic. Although it seems like these are reasonable arguments, they are very easy to rebuke. The desire to die when there's pain or suffering gives up all hope to a patient. There's been many stories about people recovering even though they were given a short time period to live, or people far outliving the time period that they were given. You don't get a chance to do this if you choose assisted suicide right away. Not only that, but there's also God involved for people who are religious, who believe that God should have the say of when someone dies, but that's taken away from them. Families may get a little bit of emotional pain taken away, not seeing a family member die in front of them, but they also have a lot more emotional pain that comes with assisted suicide. They're left wondering what if for the rest of their lives. What if their loved one hadn't taken the pills? Would they have beat the disease, or would they have had a longer life than what was expected? Another thing bringing religion back into it is that most religions believe that suicide leads to hell, and so they're left worrying about their family's afterlife also. Poor people are abused in assisted suicide, or can be abused. They can't pay for their health care, and doctors know this, and so it's easy to manipulate them or persuade them into choosing assisted suicide just because they wouldn't be able to pay for it. So even if they wanted to live, they may be urged to not. Doctors get a lot of power with assisted suicide, and it may not be the best thing. When someone wants to become a doctor, they have to take the Hippocratic Oath. A line in the Hippocratic Oath is, "I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked, nor will I advise such a plan." Assisted suicide goes right against the Hippocratic Oath. Not only that, but doctors are in a position of power, and with a position of power comes the ability to manipulate people into doing what they say. People who aren't really sure about assisted suicide can easily be persuaded into doing it. Not only the doctors give pressure, but also insurance companies and hospitals, knowing that they're losing money in the situation, can put a lot of pressure on doctors to put pressure onto their patients. Not only are there clear reasons that assisted suicide should be avoided, but there are many negative stories that have already come out. Doctors and patients can bend the law or even just go around it altogether. Dr. Charles Bentz had a patient with melanoma. She was his patient for many years, and she decided to go to assisted suicide. Instead of talking to Dr. Bentz, she went and found a new doctor who gave her consent, but then he had to talk to Dr. Bentz for the second consent from a doctor. Dr. Bentz, being her primary care, knew about her history of depression and said no, because you're not allowed to do assisted suicide with mental illness, including depression. When he said no, the doctor who said yes continued looking until he found someone else who also said yes, and the patient died of lethal prescription. Dr. Bentz knew the patient the best, but he was ignored when it came to it. Helen X was a patient with breast cancer. She had no pain, exercised daily, and really didn't have a reason to do assisted suicide, so when she asked her doctor, he said no. She didn't take that very well and kept looking. After a while, her husband started looking as well with her. Finally, they found a doctor who was able to do it. But according to Wisconsin's Right to Die, the doctor said that he was shaken by Helen's eagerness to die in the whole event. Kate Cheney had a similar experience. She had short-term cancer, and her daughter continued to take her around to different doctors looking for someone who would give it. Her memory loss made it where she shouldn't have had assisted suicide, but one doctor finally said yes, even though he felt that it was very influenced by the family's wishes. David Pruitt is kind of a weirder case. He had lung cancer. Talked to his doctor about assisted suicide. They agreed on it and were ready to do it. He took the prescription, and then he woke up 65 hours later. He was really shaken by the whole experience because he was supposed to die and ended up surviving, that he didn't take it again. And this seems like kind of a one-time experience, but according to Wisconsin's Right to Die, 18 to 25% of patients in the Dutch culture have had very similar experiences. It's clear that many cases of assisted suicide so far have not gone the way that they were expected to go, making the argument a lot stronger. At first look, it seems as assisted suicide is a good idea that alleviates pain, but under further investigation, it's not such a great choice. All hope is taken out of people's illnesses. Doctors have far too much power, and the lower class is punished or pushed into it. Already, so many stories have come out, and there are many more to come. Assisted suicide should not be legalized in any new states, and the states that already have the law should change it.